you've always wanted to write, be an author, and is the first book what you thought you would be writing?
Well, I have always been wanting to write something outside of my work. This gives me an inspiration after I got pregnant and then I have my child, and I really want to talk about motherhood. So that's why I decided to do this book.
Well, I have been writing since I was about 14 when I had my first poem published in a national newspaper. So I've made a living out of my skill with words and editing. So I did that for decades. But, you know, newspaper work is really, there's a formula to it, and it kind of don't evolve as a writer. Creative writing is so different. So it's like going back to ground zero, and I don't know if anyone watching this maybe is more of a mid-career person, and then you've got to realize you've got a book in you. You have to kind of eradicate old ways of storytelling. 3 years ago, I did an MA in creative writing. And that's when I wrote Loss Adjustment, because it was my thesis project. And I was still working for Straits Times while doing it. So that was stressful, but you know, you've got to pay the bills, as everyone knows. So you just have to bite the bullet and commit that time, destroy yourself, put on weight, and get the book done. I was lucky enough to be with some good poets in my class. So it really helped me evolve in many ways as a writer.
Cynthia, you're in the publishing space. You've written blogs, but is there a writer in you? I mean, does it help to be a writer if you're dealing with books and authors?
So if you are a writer and you are in publishing, you definitely can relate better to the authors and you get a bit more respect too. But in that sense, it makes a perfect bridge, right? In what a publisher does and how a publisher helps the author. So I think it'll be a win-win if you are a writer. I'm myself not a book writer. I've written a couple of blogs and stuff. In the future, maybe, but where I see it for myself, it has to be something I'm passionate about. Like the two ladies here, right? They've written something that they're still passionate about. And that's how you keep it going, because you want to share what you learn with the world. And that's really, really something we should nurture and encourage people to do.
From idea to publishing, how long did all that take?
Yeah, mine was more than a year, actually. So initially I wanted to do just the checklist and then, you know, some of the quotes and stuff, but it's not enough to make it into a book. So I really need to think through like each chapter, what should I do? Then I came up with, beside the checklist, it will be the emotional, financial, employment support that you can get in our society and the community. And as well as having a strong support system helps as well. And I also interview some of the mothers who juggle between career and work, so that you get their perspective and insight of what is it like to be handling that as well.
It's really interesting hearing Eleanor talk about her process. What a rigorous background you have in terms of structuring things and approach and your method. So I am the opposite, and maybe people who are thinking about writing may have even heard this already. I mean, it's a generalization, but that there's two types of writers. There's the plotter who schemes out their work really, really thoroughly and has points that they need to meet. And there's what they call pantsers, people who fly by the seat of their pants. And I'm kind of more that school, particularly as my book. Now, this is probably going to sound nuts. Do forgive me, because there's so many ways, even within these two things, of approaching it. But I had no intention of writing a book until, so my daughter came to me in a voice when I was doing a retreat. And she said to me, "Mum, Google creative writing New Zealand." So, you know, whether it was me projecting it or really, I don't know. So I went home and did it, and up popped this course, and I'd always wanted to do it, but I thought he had to be like a real writer. And it was for the International Institute of Modern Letters in New Zealand. And I went to apply, and they said applications had closed. But they said, "We're just looking at applicants now. It's amazing you contact us. So send us 5,000 words by tomorrow, and we'll consider your application." So, you know, I didn't have a lazy 5,000 words lying around. So I sat at my keyboard and I prayed to God, anyone, and my daughter, tell me what to write. And the words just came. And I wrote 5,000 words and I submitted them the next day. And then a day after that, that came back to me and they said, you're in the course?
Now people are busier. For a lot of professionals, they don't have enough time. So whether it's a fiction or a non-fiction, something that's shorter and succinct is easier to digest for people now. So that behavior has changed in terms of the book reading market. And of course, with social media, the internet, websites, bloggers and stuff, that has changed people's behavior in terms of how they digest content. You publish with a well-known publisher if you can, because there's some credibility behind. And of course, if you're looking at going international, it's easier. It's not that you can't do it yourself. You can, obviously. There's so many self-publishing routes, right? But when you want to start negotiating with distributors, international players and stuff like that, it takes a lot of time and effort, which that time and effort you could use to market yourself in a book. So it's that balance. But of course, at the end of the day, from an author to publisher perspective, the margins that is mainly usually a royalty percentage.
I know it sounds presumptuous, but I can confidently say that my book has saved lives. Constantly, week after week, Singaporeans reach out. They find ways to track me down. I don't mind. They want to meet up and they have problems. And so by bearing witness, as Eleanor has done, and as I do in loss adjustment, it enables others to give testimony, to say the unsayable, to say the secret, even if it's just to one other person or the universe. And then once you've said it, that power is taken away over you and you can open up more conversations. And with a book, you just don't have it as like one audience. There are all sorts of rights to aspects of it, like film rights, translation rights, which Cynthia can tell you more about. So actually there's quite a few ways to actually make some money from your work.
Book publishing, it's not going to make you a millionaire. There's not that many millionaires from a book publisher. There's J.K. Rowling, there's a couple here and there, but it's not a money-making device. It can give you some money, of course, but it's not. You shouldn't put all your money in one pocket. It should be something that it's a supplement to your speaking engagement, to alternate. It's another platform. But
so it's a means to an end, right? It's not the end in itself.
Exactly. And your question, yes, publishers will look for topics that's a bit broader, but also very importantly, what publishers look for is who the individual is. What's the network of the individual? Does the individual has relationships outside beyond a single market in Singapore? Or does it expand out to global organization? And now with social media, what usually a marketing group in publisher wise is, prior to publishing the book, the journey, you can start talking about your journey in writing the book on social, because that's how you get your word out before your book is out. So do not start marketing your book or talking about book when your book is published. I think people will want to know how you started, when you started, and when you share that, you get a lot more interest and people get attracted to you at the very beginning and they'll follow you on your journey. That, I think now with the social media, is a very good way to build the community of readers, to spread the word around.
Okay, so you start, how much in advance would you start?
As much in advance as you're comfortable. I've seen some authors where they started as, just blogging about the topics that they're writing and their journey in looking for publishers, and then how that journey looks like. They start from there. Or you can start as soon as you start writing the book, just giving nuggets. And sometimes, depending on the genre again, you can actually ask the audience for advice, which way should I pivot? I think, Eleanor, you said you did some research, right? That's also part of research in your book, right? So that builds community. That builds readers at the very beginning.
My book really go down to that details, because we have to cater for the mess, the meal and the messy parts, the less glamorous side of being a mother. So it is very practical. Like I will give a suggestion, like you need to buy how many rompers, how many sleeping pajamas and all that. So it's very localized because due to our hot weather as well. And my publisher has very thoughtfully put a tab to the chapter relevant to the checklist. So when you get the book, actually there's a tab here that you can really turn to that page when you go for your shopping.
Is there an e-version of your book available?
Yes, it is available.
So it'll be easier to look through that. So is it
That's
Could
right.
it be an app as well? I mean, for would-be mothers. I mean, your checklist
Right.
could be made into an app, which would be very convenient.
Well, just from my point of view, trying to get loss adjustment published was really quite difficult because, frankly, suicide is not very marketable. Isn't that a brutal thing to say? Ultimately, though, your book is a commodity to most people who are putting up the money for it. So, so how do you get around that? So I entered a competition. We submitted a first chapter for a Hachette Australia mentorship. And so I didn't need to have done the whole book or anything, but it got shortlisted for that. And the publisher was sufficiently interested to call me up, and they did that dream thing where they loved the book and they took it to an acquisitions meeting, but they couldn't get it over the line with the marketing department because they said that suicide books wouldn't sell in Australia. So I knew it was a good book, but it was my topic. So that was a blow to me to think I'd written this book and maybe it would never come out. So then I sent it off to other publishers, including Straits Press, who wanted it. But here's the thing, when you believe in your book, and you have to believe in it even when no one else does. I do, as much as, you know, I'm affiliated with you with the Straits Times, and I love and respect Straits Press, you are not right for my book. And so I turned them down. So you know, I've turned down another publisher as well, because I just had to believe it had the right home. And with Ethos, it was the right home and it was worth the wait. Who have they published as well? Are you going to feel that your book is comfortable sitting beside them? So like I turned down a publisher in New Zealand because they were a non-fiction, but some of it was like, you know, it just didn't sit well with you trying to have a book that changes people's lives, you know. Whereas with Ethos, when I met them, they said, it's important for us too that you fit in with our stable of writers.
That 20 years ago, it has to be a global book, something that reached audiences more than just Southeast Asia. But again, I think times have changed. People in this region are hungry for knowledge, and this region is in a trajectory for growth. So people want to hear more about this. It's probably not there yet, but I think there'll be a growing hunger, and it's a gap in the marketplace actually. And now with social media, e-commerce, etc., it's easier to reach people. And I would think on the flip side, I mean, there was a phase when in publishing, everyone was interested in China and India. And then it flooded the market because everyone started writing with China and India. But Southeast Asia, I think, is the next place to be. So it's something that people will find as a gap because there's really not that many books from this region.
Just want to know, how would you help somebody find the book in them?
That's a tough one. It's basically years of experience and really digging deep into what you care about, because that will allow the energy and the writing to flow, because that's where you want to make sure that, you know, your passion is part of what you're writing.
It's all about passion.
To me, yes. Once you have that, it's
easier. Yeah,
it's powerful. I think it's very powerful.
Why didn't you, when you were facing challenges, why didn't you self-publish?
If I could just quickly say, because for my book, it's a literary memoir. So I needed to use marketing jargon, I needed third-party authentication.
Sure.
I needed the right people to say, yes, this is a good book. And self-publishing wouldn't do that for me.
I think yes, for me it's the same reason as well. I would really like someone to, because it's always something to confirm that the audience out there is interested in the book that I'm writing, and there's a demand for this. So I'm glad that I found my publisher who recognized the value in this and helped me through the journey of publishing my book.
Great. I hope all of you have had a good time talking with each other, and I hope some in the audience and those who see the recorded sessions of this will be motivated and encouraged to venture into writing their books and into the publishing industry.